Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Lesson learned here, folks. Don't take vegetable oil from strangers. You'll know what it's about after a short pause. So before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Customer flips out that I won't do a return on an expired product that a stranger bought him. A little background. My family owns a small supermarket in an area that is predominantly Hispanic, so the main language of most customers and our employees is Spanish. Since I'm the owner's daughter/store manager and am bilingual, the task of dealing with English-speaking customers usually falls onto me or my brother if he's also working. The issue with this is, while I'm a 23-year-old female college student, I look very young for my age, therefore people mistake me as a lowly 15-year-old and rarely give me any respect as a manager, so it can be hard to control some customers. This story is such a case. A cashier calls me over because a customer would like to make a return but doesn't have a receipt. Now, our policy is that no cashier can make any returns without the receipt, but since I'm the manager, I have the power to override this if I feel there's a real issue with the product or if I recognize the customer and believe that they really did buy it from us. The man in question was one I did not recognize as a regular in our store, and the product in question for a return was a bottle of vegetable oil that had expired 2 years ago. Now, I'm not going to pretend that my store is perfect and we never have any damaged or expired items on shelves that we missed, but something that expired 2 years ago? Very unlikely that we would have missed that. Either way, I asked the man if he had his receipt. He proceeds to tell me that he does not because another man had came into the store and bought it for him. I tell him that I can't do the return without the receipt and that if he can ask to see his friend still had it. He tells me that he cannot because he doesn't know the man. He continues saying that a stranger came with his wife and kids and bought the groceries, and he cannot ask for the receipt because he doesn't know him. I then ask him if he could ask his wife if she could get the receipt from this stranger, and he starts to scream about he can't contact the other man because he's a stranger and he does not know him. But he came to the store with his wife and kids. I tell him there's nothing I can do for him, and he starts screaming and insulting every part of my being, my appearance, personality, and even spirituality, because I'm such a cruel person for not letting him return the 2-year-old vegetable oil that a stranger bought for him. And our second story. Head north to cross the border? Are you sure? If you insist. This didn't happen to me. It happened to my dad in the late 90s when we were living in the Detroit metro area. Locals and those who are astute geographically already know where this story's headed. The best bedtime story he ever told me. Dad used to drive for a popular shuttle bus company based in Wayne County International Airport. A VIP group from Phoenix was assigned to him. The VIP package was all-inclusive. Any place, any detour that the group wants until they reach the final destination specified in the job order. The company got paid by the mile, and Dad's pay structure was base salary plus overtime. He made a killing on tips alone as he was very professional, personable, and a neat freak. His rig was always spotless. So he picks up the VIP group, party of 9. Everyone was friendly and chatty, even though they were just on a red-eye. Pleasantries all around as he was loading up everyone's luggage except for the group leader. Let's call him Napoleon, as in Bonaparte, short man syndrome, Napoleon complex. Napoleon looked pissed for no apparent reason. One gal in the group, let's call her Eva, who was distantly related to Napoleon, even pulled Dad aside to apologize in advance because she knew Napoleon would be rude and abrasive. This is how he operates, she said. Once everyone is seated, Dad makes the safety announcements, asks everyone to buckle up, asks everyone to make sure their U.S. passports can be easily accessed, etc. He asks if the group wants a quick pit stop for food, drinks, souvenir shopping, etc. before heading to their final destination, which was their hotel located just across the U.S.-Canada border in Windsor, Ontario. Dad was used to people flying to Detroit, then crossing the border to go to Windsor, as this was much more economical, especially for larger groups. Before Dad could finish talking, Napoleon cuts him off. "I'm in charge of this group, and I'll speak for everyone. No detours, no scenic routes, strictly point A to point B. We'll need to stop every hour or so because Eve here will need to use the ladies' room due to her bladder issues. I want you to fill up your gas tank while she's at it because I don't want any other unnecessary stops." Needless to say, Eve was humiliated. What can she do? Napoleon's her good old distant uncle. Before Dad could interject, he was about to point out that the Detroit-Windsor tunnel was less than a half hour away and border traffic was very, very light. Remember late 90s, pre-9/11 terrorist attacks? Napoleon inflects his voice, talking over my dad, and says, "Via northbound I-275, westbound I-96, northbound Route 23, and then northbound I-75 the rest of the way." I approximated the route that Napoleon specified due to the fact that some of the highway interchanges were different back in those days. In case you want a visual on Google Maps or MapQuest, Dad was going to talk some sense into Napoleon, but again was cut off. Again, voice inflected, period. Dad does the addendum to their trip ticket, has Napoleon sign and date the document. His maliciously compliant road trip has commenced. Once the shuttle had gotten on the interstate, Dad turns on the cockpit voice recorder to document everything and radios the office to inform the dispatcher on duty of the addendum, making sure he spoke slowly, clearly, and loud enough for Napoleon to hear everything. He then turns to Napoleon, informing him that they'll be out of radio range soon and the addendum will be final and binding at that point. Napoleon says with an irritated voice, "Everything that I've instructed you to do has been meticulously planned and premeditated. I expect you to execute it without prejudice." Dad politely nods his head in affirmation. Instead of going from point A to point B, a mere half-hour commute, they're now en route making a gigantic 700-mile, 10-hour U-turn. Napoleon didn't realize that Windsor, Ontario is south of Detroit, Michigan. Thankfully, they ended up not completing this trip. Details upcoming. On their first pit stop at a Sunoco in Flint, Eva, after visiting the ladies' room, approached my dad as he was pumping gas. She says, "Sorry for Napoleon's demeanor. We all hate him, but he's the boss." My dad, feeling a bit of guilt, tells Eva that they're in the early stages of a gigantic U-turn. Eva's eyes bulged in disbelief. After gathering herself, she instructs Dad to head back south and take the fastest route to their hotel and not inform Napoleon of the change. My dad was happy to do it, but their company will still be charged for the time/distance of their giant U-turn per the addendum. Eva said not to worry about that, as she'll inform their office of Napoleon's blunder once they're settled at their hotel. Eva was now a happy and willing accomplice. Dad sensed that Eva had long been waiting for an opportunity like this to put Napoleon in his proper place. The rest of the commute was uneventful. Napoleon was oblivious to the direction that the shuttle bus was headed at this point, as he was busy reading magazines. At the hotel drop-off, Eva asked Dad for the office number. Dad promptly gives her his business card. 4 days later, Dad picks up the same group. Eva had phoned the office requesting the same driver for the return leg. This time they were a party of 8. Napoleon had been instructed to fly back the day after their arrival after Eva was reassigned to be their team's interim lead. Eva handed Dad a $400 tip, $600 in 2021, inside a white envelope. Each remaining team member chipped in $50 each. They shook Dad's hand. Apparently, Eva filled everyone in on what Napoleon had erroneously planned. Eva explained with a wry smile on the way to Detroit that Dad's company will be paid in full per the trip addendum. Napoleon wasn't canned, but he became the office idiot. Was never again given the task of leading a team. Dad's now retired, living with his current wife in Toledo, just across the Michigan-Ohio border. Eva is now my realtor. She helped me and my husband find our dream home here in Glendale, Arizona. And our last story. Entitled Mother Tries Stealing My Stuff. There was a sale today at a warehouse-type store that ends with Co. Brand new kayaks were being sold for super cheap and fully equipped. We arrived a few minutes before opening and the staff pointed us to where we could get a kayak. There were only 18 available and 3 were left. We took one, and 15 minutes later, they announced there were no more kayaks available. Now, some people were disappointed, but no one really made a fuss about it. No one except Karen. She started huffing and stomping her feet in front of the entrance staff, claiming that they shouldn't advertise the kayaks if they don't even have enough for everyone, and that she deserved to have a kayak because they're just so expensive and I have a family to feed. The staff politely explained they would receive some more over the weeks and that she could come back at that time. She waved her hand at the staff and made her way back to her car. At that point, me and my mom were loading the kayak on top of the car. My mom went in the store to get some groceries and I stayed in the car as I wasn't feeling well. About 10 minutes later, I hear rattling coming from the side of the car. I take a look, and there was Entitled Mom with two of her crotch goblins trying to undo the straps and take the kayak. I jumped out of the car and said pretty loudly, "May I help you?" Here's the conversation that followed. Me: "May I help you?" EM: "Go away, we're just loading our kayak on our car." Me: "Yeah, that's my car. I'm gonna have to ask you to leave or I'm calling the cops." EM: "Can't you see I'm a struggling mom? I need the kayak to make my kids happy. Look at them, they're so sad not to have one." Her kids were still trying to undo the straps, which they were barely able to reach. Me: "Please take your hands off the straps, kids. That's my car." EM: "Don't you talk to my kids that way. I'll have you arrested for child molestation. I just want the kayak and then we can go. Why can't you do a good gesture for us?" Me: "Because it's mine. And you're crazy, lady. I didn't even touch your kids. I'm giving you one last chance to go back to your car or I'm calling the cops." EM stood there with her arms crossed and gave me a defiant look. That was all I needed, and I called the cops. They arrived maybe 10 minutes later, and EM had gotten back to trying to untie the straps. I let her do it because I thought the cops would see her and it'd be more proof. And gosh, I was right. As soon as they stepped foot outside their car, they asked EM to get away from the car, and they wanted to ask her a couple of questions. She huffs and tells the police that the kayak is hers and that she paid for it. I show them my receipt, and they say it's okay. As they saw her untying the straps, they asked if I wanted to press charges, and I said, hell yeah. At that point, my mom was back, and after a brief explanation, we loaded the groceries and drove away. The police stayed with EM, and we could hear her screaming and whining about her kayak being stolen and how she will be doing something about it. Me and my mom just laughed, and I'm currently enjoying a relaxing fishing day in my kayak. Struggling moms don't buy kayaks. She's just a spoiled and entitled person. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.